The first 3D game of the series that brought us the baseline tracks of the current fan favorites, even including some fan favorites itself of the Mario Kart series. This video is the start of a series where I'll rank every track from a particular Mario Kart game, starting with the second game of them all, Mario Kart 64. We're skipping Super Mario Kart because the tracks in that game are fairly basic and all clones of each other, so it would feel abundant and repetitive to rank all of them in their own video. So we have 16 tracks in this game to get ranked, and I recently just replayed all of them, so let's get ranking. Now at the bottom, at the list, number 16, we got Luigi Raceway. Luigi Raceway is a beginner track, so it's to be expected it's going to be this low. It's fairly bland too. There's a cool balloon that comes down to the track with an item box. It's really hard to get it actually, but you get a good item. I think it's like a blue shell or a golden mushroom or something, so that's really cool. The tunnel in it is pretty claustrophobic. There's not a lot of space. It's hard to get hits with shells in there, but it's a good basic track. It's fairly simple though, which is why it's this low on the list. Not a lot of fun you can get out of playing it. Now next up, if you watched my previous video, you know which track I don't like. Wario Stadium. Now, again, this track is way too long, I think. 5 minutes to complete a track is ridiculous. If you miss a jump at the end, it's going to become even longer because you have to redo half that track if you miss a jump, which I think is a little fun. It adds more difficulty, but, you know, I don't really know. Now, the obstacles are non-existent, okay? You have bumps. The bumps are kind of cool, I guess, but it's just a dirt road. It's fairly boring. I know there's that one shortcut you can do over the stadium at the very beginning. The one thing that I do like about this track that puts it above last, because it's going to be last otherwise, is this track's really good to learn drifting on because of all the turns are like perfect for drifting because it's like a dirt bike stadium. So you can get your drifting skills up here and then get yourself ready for the rest of the cup, because the rest of this cup, oh boy, is not very fun. Because next up is Sherbet Land. We're continuing on with the Star Cup. Now this track is boring, first of all. We don't like boring tracks. The penguins are obnoxious, like they look cute but they're obnoxious if you get hit by them. The tunnel is like the only good part of the track, I think, but it's cluttered with penguins and pillars and awkward turns. Then the part of the track where you're just on the ice, the turns are awkward with the cracks you have to avoid, and there's still penguins sliding around. It's really slippery and bland. It's just not fun to play on. And then when you come out of the tunnel, the items are in a really awkward spot that you have to like move out of your way to get to. I just think that's really unfun, not a fun track to play. It's not very interesting outside of the tunnel and the pillars you have to avoid. I mean, I do like that there's penguins, there's actual obstacles and difficulty, but it's just not a fun track. And we continue in the Star Cup with the Royal Raceway at number 13. Now the altitudes and moving up hills in this track are kind of goofy. I like how they fixed it in Mario Kart 8. That's why it's so much better in Mario Kart 8 than it is in this game. Now, missing the bridge is really terrible. It's what killed the track for me at first. Because just watch this clip. What the actual hell was that? Okay, I got dragged from like a top placement to 8th because I missed the bridge section and they added guardrails to it. That is ridiculous. And other than that, it's just like Mario and Luigi Raceway. They just named this Royal Raceway instead of Peach Raceway, which is essentially what it was. You can drive with the Peach's Castle. That's kind of cool, I guess, but that's not great for the track itself. And it got a glow up in Mario Kart 8 again, but this isn't Mario Kart 8, this is Mario Kart 64. The Mario Kart 64 version is not fun to play. It's just grass everywhere that you're driving around with Peach's Castle and a big ramp jump. So yeah, not a fun track. In my opinion, I know it's a popular one though, so feel free to disagree. Now moving on to number 12. You love your boring desert stages, right? Right? I'm sure you love Calamari Desert then. Because that is just that, a boring desert stage. It's a straight road for most of the track. There is the train. The train's really cool. and it's hard to stop for too because of how the mechanics work in Mario Kart 64 with the controls, so that's kind of cool. It's similar to Royal Raceway where it go up in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 2 where they added the ramp and you got to race on the train track through the train track tunnel, so it's more of a variety of where you are. But in Mario Kart 64, it's just not a great track. It's boring, there's no ramps, there's just a train, that's all it has going for it. I like the music is a good vibe though. That is another thing that's going for it, but yeah, just not my favorite track. I don't need to see it again. We've seen it a lot recently too, so yeah. Moving on to number 11, Moo Moo Farm. Now this one, I was surprised it was this high, honestly, because it is simple, kind of basic, but it's fun just to drive in the circle with the bridge. There's pillars that you have to like precisely drive through in the right way so you make it to the finish line. The moles are a cool obstacle that you can go the long way around and entirely avoid, but if you want a shortcut, you have to deal with all the moles. That's really cool. And it's a prequel to Moo Moo Meadows. Everyone loves Moo Moo Meadows, okay? So this is where that track came from. You gotta love it for that. And I like the music of this track. It's one of my favorite songs in this game, so that's another big plus for this. It's one of my favorite beginner tracks in the game too. Boy oh boy, top 10. We start the top 10 off with DK Jungle Parkway. Now similar to other tracks like Sherbetland and Calamari Desert, this would just be like your basic forest track. But this one has more than that, which is why it's here, and I think it justifies it being up in the top 10. But there's that cool jump, of course, similar to Royal Raceways, but this one's actually fun. You don't need to like climb onto it and you can't fall off because they have guardrails. Like, guardrails that you just slowly go onto, not from the beginning. So it's actually enjoyable this time. I think it's kind of funny that when you're off the road, you get pine cones thrown at you to get back on the road. That's a cool addition they didn't need to add. And it has a great difficulty. It's in the Special Cup, you'd expect that. I like that about the track. And also the tunnel and bridge at the end. That bridge is really narrow. It adds like more elements of strategy and stuff to the game to get to the bridge, and then the turn at the cave is always really fun. You can take the shortcut but risk falling down, or go the long way around. A great place to practice a drift too on that tunnel turn. So yeah, I really like this track. Probably an underrated one. Still not one of my favorites, but I do like it. Rounding off the bottom half, we go to Mario Raceway. Now this one is a bit of a circuit track. It's basic, blah blah blah, but it's unique in a way. That piranha plant is really cool. The piranha plant and mushrooms, I like those. There's a lot of shortcut opportunities. It looks really nice for a Nintendo 64 track. Those signs with the Mario are nice. The stadium near the beginning is cool. They added so much to this track that's just really fun. The layout's really fun to drive around. Like, it's a little curvy, a bit of a twisty road, but still beginnery. So for that, I like it. And the pipe at the end, they added to that in the Wii, but here it's still great. Like going through the pipe tunnel, you wouldn't expect them to add that in a Mario Kart game. It's one of my favorite parts of this track too. And now we're into the top half of the list, and we start that off with a better ice track of this game, Frappe Snowland. Now, this one is easier than Sherbetland admittedly, but I think it's a better ice track because there's no ice physics, so you're not going to have trouble controlling yourself. And there's snowmen. That one section with all the snowmen is really fun to try to navigate through those. It adds difficulty. There's that narrow section where the walls kind of close in on you towards the end. I like that section a lot. And the beginning is just giving you a nice vibe for the track and what it's going to be like. So it is simple. There's no lot to it, but I would like to see this one back in a future game because other than Tour, we haven't seen it since 2005, which is a while ago. Number 7, Lucky 7, Toad's Turnpike. Now this one was really difficult. Like, some of the traffic you'd avoid, like look at this clip right here. How are you supposed to get through that? Like, some of these things you need to get through are really tight. And then I can't imagine it on mirror mode, because when the cars are coming towards you, it's a whole nother thing, right? It's a whole step up in difficulty when it's already difficult to begin with. People think this is one of the easier traffic courses, and in Mario Kart 8 that is certainly the case, but in this game, there's enough of the cars that make it really difficult and actually fun to avoid. This track is also the first original version of the traffic courses that gave us things like Moonview Highway later, so I really like traffic themed courses like this before the city ones, but traffic themed courses like this, especially at night, are some of my favorites, so for that, I like it. The layout's a little basic, like it's just an 8, but the obstacles are what boost it up here so high. Number 7, Toad's Turnpike. Now we have probably a bit of a hot take. Number 6, the most iconic track of the game, Rainbow Road. Now I'm sure some of you are shocked it's on the top 5. It's Rainbow Road, for crying out loud, but I'll go through the positives first because there are a lot. This track is good, I like it. It looks really good. The rainbow, probably one of the best tracks in the game visually, for sure. Then the chain chomps eating at you throughout the track, that's kind of cool. Adds obstacles to it. The jump at the beginning of the lap, that's always really satisfying to pull off. I love doing that jump. The music here is fantastic. The fireworks are fantastic of all the characters. You go around and see all of them. And yeah, it's a really good track, but my biggest issue is this track took me 7 minutes. 7 minutes. That is longer than Wario Stadium, and that is longer than 2 of the basic standard tracks. Like, that is ridiculous. No track should take 7 minutes to complete, okay? So that kind of drags it down a lot, and in addition to that, you have all the guardrails at the track with the shells. You can't throw the shells because they operate weird in this game. So like if you throw a red shell, it's just going to bump into the guardrail and not go anywhere unless your opponent's like 2 steps away from you. Right, so that track is a little bit lackluster in that regard, but the visuals pull it up, the chain chomps are cool, but it's just a straight road you're driving on a rainbow for 7 minutes. That's basically the track, but it has revival factors that boost it up, to say the least. Now we're into our top 5, and we start the top 5 with the track that really grew on me on replay. I used to not like this track at all in this game, and that's Choco Mountain. And the reason I didn't like it was because you bumped into the walls, you'd like spin out. I actually didn't experience that much at all upon replay. Maybe I'm just better at the game now, maybe I'm just imagining stuff or hallucinating, I don't know, but yeah, it really grew on me. It expanded on probably the most unique theme from the first game, and the Choco Island themes, and made a whole like Choco Mountain track. You have that part of the track where you like climb up the mountain and the rocks are falling on you, and you want to avoid them so you don't fall in the water or fall back on the earlier stages of the track you have to redo. And all the bumps are like, this track in a way is Wario Stadium done it right. Like there's all the bumps, there's the rocks, except I like this theme a lot more than a dirt arena. And the music, I really like the music in this track, one of the most underrated songs in Mario Kart, I think. And it's just enjoyable to play on and play through. Like, it's such a good vibe, you know? And this was the last time we've seen the Choco theme in Mario Kart. I hope they bring that back one day. Yeah, Choco Mountain, Choco Island, it's one of the coolest unique themes in the series, so they really should bring those back, I think. But moving on to the top 4. Top 4 starts off with Koopa Troopa Beach. It may seem a bit high for a starter beach track, but it has shortcuts that are really cool, I think. Like a one where you can go through the cave, and then you have all the ramps here at the track. You don't really see that a lot in Mario Kart 64. Those ramps are really cool. The trees that you have to like pivot through, persevere. If you hit them, you like spin out. That's a really cool obstacle. Like it's like the snowman you have to navigate through, but a little more tight, I think, actually. Maybe not, but it's the same idea. And then you have that big shell you can jump over. I usually don't do it because I'm scared of hitting a tree afterwards, but it's a nice part of the track. It's probably really fun to try too. And then the tide comes in and out throughout the entire track, which is something they absolutely didn't need to add, but I'm so glad they did because it's what makes this track so good, I think. And at the end, you have the tide coming in and out. The water could slow you down if the tide's coming in. And if the tide's still out, there's crabs in your way because you're trying to take a shortcut and not go the long way around on the ramps. So, you know, That's always a fun part of the track. And then it's all topped by amazing music. That music is so good, it's so relaxing. I want to hear a remix. That's like one of the best Mario Kart 64 songs for sure. And now we're at our top 3. 3 difficult tracks, 3 unique tracks, 3 of the best tracks of the game. My favorite 3 tracks in the game, obviously. In 3rd place, getting bronze, Banshee Boardwalk. Now this track's a unique, spooky one. I like it a lot. I really hope it gets remade sometime soon because it hasn't been remade since Mario Kart DS, obviously. And there's a lot of cool parts of this track, like the turns are just tough to get around. They're not in like basic big turns, they're like actual sharp turns you need to drive around. There's that whole abandoned house section with the bats. I really like that part of the track a lot. The turns are a little awkward in there, but it adds variety. The Cheep Cheep jumping out of the water will forever be iconic. Probably my favorite part of the track. It's really dark and dim, kind of hard to see. I hope they do fix that if they remake it, but it adds to the spookiness, of course. And there's that one diagonal kind of turn on the way to the abandoned house. I found myself falling out there a lot, falling off the track, because it's just so difficult to see, you know. I did finally get good at it by the end of the track, but the first 2 laps I fell there, so there's definitely difficulty there. I love difficulty in Mario Kart games because a lot of the tracks just feel too easy, especially nowadays, you know. And top 2 great tracks. And number 2 here, Bowser's Castle. This isn't my favorite Bowser's Castle, but it is up there as one of the more unique ones. This is the one silver lining of the Star Cup, because you know I love those first 3 tracks so much. All ranking within my bottom 4. It's another spooky track, of course. I like spooky tracks, and this one isn't even like a haunted one intended to be like that. It just gives spooky vibes because of the music, and that's another thing. The music in this track is one of the best songs in this game for sure. I love the remix in a Wii too. Just always a good one to go back to. The thwomps are really cool obstacles, like they follow you around, you have to pivot yourself around them. And you never can forget about Marty the green thwomp stuck in that cage. We'll get him out one day. Then you travel throughout the castle, the rooftop, and the garden. That's a lot of variety in one track, and I really like it for that. And then you have the bridges over the lava too, to like transition between them. Like you transition from the castle to the garden in that bridge area, then you go through the garden and you transition over to the spinny tower to the rooftop. I think that's a really cool part of the track. There's a lot to drive through, and it's a longer one, but this one actually makes use of it being long, unlike the other 2 long tracks where you drive on the same thing for just a long period of time. This one's not even as long as either of them, so it's a really nice track for that. A longer one that makes it work. And now you have number 1. I'm sure you guys know which one number 1 is, right? Right. We're back on Sherbet Land. I was flying as number 1. You know it's Yoshi Valley. Yoshi Valley is a really cool maze track. It has a ton of paths to explore, so it's going to take multiple replays to explore them all, find out what's fastest. The fastest path I found is actually difficult to go on because it's really narrow. There's like a slant to it to make it easy to fall off, and when you do fall off it takes forever to actually fall to the bottom, so you really have a motive not to do that. On a lot of the other faster paths there's like these porcupine things that you have to avoid as cool obstacles. This mystery of not knowing your placement was one of my favorite parts of the track. I was a little bummed it didn't return Mario Kart 8, but it's cool. The music's the same as Moo Moo Farm, so it's still great. The narrow turns are nice. There's a twisty road. Then you have that whole egg section. The egg's really cool. Just an all-around cool, unique track, and easily my favorite track this game has to offer. Because of all its uniqueness, we've never had a track like this again in the Mario Kart series, like a big maze that you have to find the shortest path. And yeah. So what are your favorite Mario Kart 64 tracks? Do you agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time when we rank all the tracks from Mario Kart Double Dash, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.